this is Resilient Food and Water Systems in Practice. It's a very large and diverse group, so I won't be mentioning any names of colleagues. And it's run by the two of us, so it's run by Julia and by myself. So, the key characteristics of this particular theme is, yes, it's grounded in natural science. It cannot exist without critical social science. So you'll hear some of the same words coming up again. So we undertake laboratory and field-based monitoring and experiments. So you can see one bottom right there on porous paving, and there's a demonstration, I think, on our table over there. Observations of more efficient livestock systems, modelling, again, community engagement. We can't undertake these sorts of research areas without engaging with the community. So this then leads us into the social sciences, and again, citizen science, learning from other people, learning the way that they do things. It's a two-way street. So we have social stabilisation, knowledge systems, and so on. The key characteristic of this theme is that it is applied to the real world. So we do go out in our wellies, and we do get dirty at times. Because we're such a large, diverse group, we do have 5 separate programmes. I've said separate, they're interlinked, obviously. So the ones that are active at the moment are the ones in blue, and then we have a proposed 6th programme in red at the bottom, and I'll come on to that in a minute. So what runs through these programmes that ties them together? Well, obviously, agriculture does, urban and peri-urban areas do, and also international studies. We obviously work in the UK, but we also work across the world. But also running at the core of this is resilience. And Michelle gave you a bit of a definition of resilience, to which I would like to add multiple benefits. Resilience wouldn't carry on being resilient, if that even makes sense, if it doesn't have multiple benefits associated with it. And as we go through, I hope I'll be able to pick out some of those multiple benefits in some of the studies that we're doing. Oh, and I should have done that. Okay. So if we start then by looking at agrobiodiversity and invasive species, again, we feel as if with some of these things we're really at the cutting edge. And so, for instance, bottom right, we have the long-running study of Prosopis, an invasive species, and particularly now looking at, rather than looking at them as a nuisance, trying to find a means of using them. So let's not waste it. And so in Somalia there's a project investigating the use of Prosopis as a fuel. But also, at times, agroecosystems can be resilient themselves, and what are the factors that drive this resilience? So in the middle there we've got a picture of Solanum, and again this is a project looking at trying to improve the resilience of agroecosystems to invasive species. You'll probably all be aware of the problems that we had at one time with bees, and all they talk about, if we didn't have bees we wouldn't have crops, and therefore we'd all starve. And so again there's a project in this theme examining UK pollinators. Again, it's citizen science engaging with the community, and with the Royal Horticultural Society, trying to improve people's back gardens to encourage bees, and encourage the population. But it's not only in the UK. Here we have somewhere in eastern India where smallholders are also being encouraged and trained as beekeepers. So you'll notice with every slide to remind me that top left-hand corner, resilience. So again, we come back to community engagement. So in terms of alternative farming systems, you cannot do anything without engaging with the community. But again, you can, again, it's a two-way street. You can get information back in terms of citizen science. So possibly you might want to improve soil quality, and there are various initiatives around incorporating green manures, using soil amendments. I'll give you an example in a minute. Both in the UK, so top left, discussing with farmers about incorporating green manures. But as you go diagonally, I can't move because of the microphone, as you go diagonally down towards the bottom right, engaging with pastoralists, looking at cropping systems, permaculture, improved livestock systems and rangelands. So, I said I'd give you a specific example. So there's quite an initiative here in terms of the production of biochar. So we have a wasted waste. You have the green stuff picked up in your green bins every fortnight. It is for us every fortnight anyway. And there is a market for the low particle size once it's been dealt with, but there is no market for the larger bits and bobs. So when you cut your hedge down or something like that, there's very little can be done about it. But possibly you might be able to produce biochar with it. There's various on-farm wastes that could be used to produce biochar. And I don't know whether you can see the diagram there, but here is an example of multiple benefits. So you're transforming a waste. In doing that, you possibly have a source of renewable energy. By producing the biochar itself, you're locking up carbon, so you're mitigating climate change. You can then incorporate it into farmed soil and improve soil structure, and in doing that you might be able to improve the crops that you get. So it's win-win. Right, so this is very left field. We have quantum agriculture. This is led by Julia, and it investigates the connections, or if there are any connections, between electromagnetic frequencies, between sound frequencies, and possibly improved crop production. For instance, possibly improving the amount of milk that a dairy cow might produce. As I say, if you've got any questions about this, this is Julia's. She isn't here at the moment, and I'm not suggesting by that slide that she is in a galaxy far, far away. She is actually in America. She'll be back on Monday, and her details are there. So, back to Earth with a splash. So, those two pictures there are of the people in Cumbria who were trying to cope with the 1 in 2,500 year storm that they ended up having at the weekend. We have quite a strong group in this theme that investigates water-sensitive urban design, sustainable drainage, and natural flood resilience methods. So again, this is coming back to something that Michelle mentioned at the beginning on eco-mimicry and trying to get back to the way the land was before we took charge of it. So we do things in the laboratory, so that's bottom left. So this is investigating hard sustainable drainage infrastructure. In the middle, we also investigate at the laboratory scale vegetation that take up the pollutants that Damien was talking about, generated due to traffic and industry and urbanisation in general. So we do that at the laboratory scale, but also we do investigations at the field scale. So this diagram here on the right-hand side illustrates internationalisation in that we investigate porous paving car parks with colleagues in Spain at the University of Cantabria. So that's just, well, it's not just, but it is water. But also here we have the addition of ensuring that we have good quality food in metropolitan regions across Europe. Okay, so environmental remediation or ecological restoration, and again this shows you the win-win situation I was talking about before, in that you have multiple benefits associated with a resilience measure. So there is quite a literature on phytoremediation, but why plant something that takes up the contaminants and then do nothing with it? So why not take say an aromatic crop of some sort that has a secondary use? You can extract the oil from this and you get a product. So it increases its resilience value, if you like. As I said, it's a win-win situation. And on the right-hand side is Martin. I did say I wouldn't say people's names. Forget I said that. So this is Hydroecology. Interactions between the living world and the physical environment in terms of freshwater ecosystems. And you might be thinking, looking at that, oh my goodness, that's metal and concrete and it's horrible. But it is now I've got to say, fish passage. I practiced that and I couldn't get it right. Through hydropower barriers. Hydropower, renewable energy. But where is the point if the impact on the environment is a negative one? And so you put things like this in and you study the way that they work to ensure that you minimise any impact that we as a society would have. Okay, resilience in a really challenging environment. So here we have refugee camps, informal settlements, camps after disasters. So if you look top left, you've got a camp in Jordan, and it looks fairly bare, it looks fairly barren. In the middle, in Iraq, you have a young man stood outside his UNHCR tent, and again, I don't know whether you can see that, but there's a little garden in front of him where he's growing stuff. Green stuff to improve the environment, improve the quality of his life. And at the bottom there, in the Gaza Strip, you've got polytunnels growing stuff. And a couple of people stood there looking quite pleased with it. So what we're looking at here is, okay, you might have WASH in the camp at the top left-hand corner, water and sanitation and health. Do you have drainage? If you were to put green infrastructure in there, which could act as some sort of a drainage device, you would improve people's health, you would improve the environment, you would cool the environment. Here again, we're talking about multiple benefits. So various UN agencies that are involved in this, including farmers and farmer groups, but also the UN, international and national NGOs. Okay, so the last one is the one that we were suggesting that we might introduce. And again, resilience, multiple benefits. So community gardening, and it comes back again to the refugee camps example. You get people growing food in their own gardens, they go out more, they get out into the green space, their health improves, they don't go to the doctor quite so often. The whole environment is improved by it, you can mitigate and adapt to climate change. I'm not going to go on anymore. So we do deal specifically with resilience and with the multiple benefits that are associated with that. And I think that's me. It is. So the next theme then is Michelle.